the last concern is agility. Most IT managers ask the following question: is our on-premise infrastructure agile enough, and at what cost? When they decide buying new equipment, they have to spend large amount of cash upfront and have to make sure this capacity will last them for at least 3 to 5 years. So they end up actually paying for capacity that will not be utilized. Now, how you can cope if the business requirements expand beyond the capacity of the underlying infrastructure, and how you will be able to keep your customers happy and satisfied. Now, what if you don't have to worry about your infrastructure scalability or having the flexibility of scale your infrastructure, and you only pay for the capacity you need? And this is how cloud computing is transforming our lives. And like Bill Gates said in 1995, we will embrace and extend internet technologies. And it's time to embrace the cloud. So, what is the cloud computing value proposition? Very simple. It is a pay-as-you-go model and secure that requires absolutely no capital investments. You only pay for the computing power that you need and scale up or down depending on your business requirements. For example, if you need a byte of RAM to run specific workload. For example, if you have the end of the month reporting that requires a lot of resources. So in case of the cloud, or if your infrastructure is on the cloud, you can have access to such resources with no more than 5 minutes. You can run the heavy tasks or query you need and then delete the instance. You pay only for the time you have used. However, if you need such resources in your on-prem environment, you need to purchase hardware or pay a lot of money for that, and then do the racking, the cable management, networking, and so on. So we'll not be able to run your queries on such resources before a week at least. So if we were to compare cloud computing to the legacy or on-premise hosting, we have gathered some information in this slide. It has lots of information that I would be happy to share it with you. The initial investment in the cloud is zero compared with the on-premise, where there's upfront amount to host your workload. Second, the recurring cost is monthly on the cloud. However, it is yearly and long-term on-premise. The infrastructure is massive, global, and highly available on the cloud. However, it is limited with single points of the lacking. Now I want to talk about the most important thing in terms of security, which is the compliance, especially because cloud providers like AWS are will be a very long and expensive procedure to achieve. I found this interesting comparison model, and the analogy with the icebergs is really amazing. The whole idea behind it is that most of the cost of the on-premise infrastructure is that allows. Now I want to talk about different migration approaches to migrate your data to Amazon Web Services. First of all, for organizations that don't have a legacy infrastructure, there's no question. The answer is a high services on the cloud. Hi, can you hear me now better?
Yes, Ghassan.
Okay, I apologize for this technical issue with the voice.
No worries. This is much better.
Okay, now I want to talk about different approaches for migrating the data to Amazon Web Services. Can you see my screen?
Not now.
I lost the start sharing button.
Okay. Can you check now?
Okay.
Yes. Now I can see your screen. Please continue.
Now I want to talk about different approaches for migrating the data to Amazon Web Services. What is the ideal scenario to benefit the most from the cloud? For organizations that don't have a legacy structure, there's no questions. The answer is porting the data directly to the cloud without spending anything on premise. For organizations that have already an existing investment, the move to the cloud is accomplished through a hybrid model, which is when migrating some of your workload to the cloud while keeping some of the other workload on premise. It's like an extension of your on premise services and network. The extension will be hosted on the cloud. Let me elaborate. Your typical on-premise infrastructure has several components. For example, core applications, critical applications, a DR. It might be in a different data center hosted, CRM application or HR or ERP. And finally, the web-facing applications such as email and collaboration or a landing page of your website. It might be a static content. So we divide this migration into different phases. First of all, by migrating the web-facing applications, it might be a mobile application or a static website and email services. In phase two, we create HR, ERP, and CRM development applications. Moving forward to phase three, where we migrate the disaster recovery from on-premise to the cloud, we can replicate your DR or provide better solution for DR on the cloud since it has more services that you can benefit from. In phase four, we migrate the critical applications and finally reach the final phase of the cloud, which is the full cloud adoption, where all the services starting by phase one, reach phase five, have been migrated to the cloud. Now I would like to address the data residency and data security on the cloud. It's important to mention that regardless of the location of the data, internet-connected systems expose the organization to a broad threat space. Human process failure and insider threats are still a significant risk. The physical location of data has little to no impact on threats propagated over the internet. Internet-connected systems expose an organization to a broad threat space, all of which are propagated from any location. Human process failure is the root cause failure of most cybersecurity, like manual patch updates, for example. The vast majority of data compromises have occurred either through unintentional errors or intentional malicious behavior by individuals using authorized accounts that have the right to access the data. The best mechanism to protect, detect, respond, and recover is to use the transformational security the cloud offers through automation. Cloud providers like AWS invest in technical and operational security best practices because it is core to their operations and offerings. Customers will benefit from AWS infrastructure and cloud security. So now I want to move to the next chapter, which is the cloud infrastructure, which is a shared responsibility between AWS and the customer. In this slide, we will talk about AWS shared and security responsibility. The shared responsibility model define who is responsible for what on the cloud. In this case, who is either AWS or customer. As you can see in this diagram, AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud by setting the regions, availability zones, and locations, the hardware, setting up the compute, the storage, the database, and networking. And on the top, the customer, on the other hand, is responsible for the security in the cloud. In other terms, the customer is responsible for things like encryption, server-side encryption, patching, maintaining OS patches, and firewall rules. This is where AWS partners will add value to cover the customer responsibility. Kloudr managed services will provide the customer an end-to-end solution on the cloud by covering the customer responsibility in addition to the support to AWS responsibility. Now I want to show you this comparison between Cloudera Msp and the traditional IT support. When we started as Kloudr as an MSP, the MSP model did not exist in the region. After we established the ISPs from 1996 to 2000, in 2000 our model changed to an MSP. You definitely have heard about ISP, however we are an MSP, a managed service provider. We are a native service provider. It's in our DNA. We were never in the traditional model of IT sales. Our monitoring tools that are fully integrated with AWS provide proactive monitoring and management compared to the traditional IT support that is based on reactive response on incidents. I want to explain what is the difference between proactive and reactive. We at Kloudr, we don't wait until an issue occurs in order to intervene. The totally opposite of traditional IT support, where whenever you face an issue in your department, you call the IT support in order to resolve it. However, our monitoring tool is built in a way that we can detect an issue prior it is occurring. We are offering our monitoring and management services around the clock on a 24/7 basis, in addition to a single point of contact for all of your queries. These are the services that we are providing at Kloudr. First of all, provide cloud migration services. To migrate, we help you migrate your data and workloads to the cloud. And once we migrate the data and your workloads on the cloud, we do the cloud management in terms of security, of managing all the access, making sure everything is fine, and we optimize the cost for you. And then to the cloud management and monitoring. And then we back up the data of your workloads, either within the same region, or we can agree on a different approach where we can do a cloud disaster recovery, which might be in a different region. And the whole process will be automated and transparent for you. Thank you guys for attending this webinar, and I'm really sorry for the technical issue that occurred with the microphone. Now, if you have any question, I will be glad to answer.
Guys, if you have any questions, yeah, just put it in the Q&A block. And Ghassan can address and answer those questions. Guys, feel free to ask any questions. You can just put those questions in the Q&A block. We'll wait for another 5 minutes. Ghassan, there is a request from Mohammed and said that is it possible to have any demo?
Yes, Muhammad, definitely we can have a demo, but it should be scheduled in a different session where we can go through different solutions to migrate the data, as Stephen have described in the first section of this webinar. We can have a demo on the server migration service, which is a native service provided by AWS, in addition to the database migration service that Stephen has explained in the first section.
Uh, yes. Thanks, Gasan. There is another question. How can we perform real-time replication of workload between two availabilities with near zero RTO and RPO?
Uh, Actually, this is a great question. To answer that, we need to have the full requirements of your workloads in order to provide you with the optimal and best solution, because each solution should be customized according to your workload and how much time you have or you need to have in terms of RPO or RTO. Okay, the recovery point and recovery time, it depends on many factors. It depends on the database. For example, if you have MySQL database or Oracle database or MS SQL, so each product has its different approach and different solution. So we need to gather the full requirements of your infrastructure, and then we can propose for you an optimal solution.
Thank you, Gasan. There is another question. For each migration services, how seamless and transparent are they?
Okay, for example, I want to give you a brief on how server migration service works. The server migration service, which is provided for free by AWS, you can install an agent on your VMware or Hyper-V, and it starts replicating your virtual machine to the cloud. So in this way, while keeping everything online on premise, while all your users are working fine on this environment, in the back end, through this agent, the virtual machine will start replicating to the cloud. And once the replication is completed, it can be restored into EC2 instances. The same scenario applies to VMware.
Thank you, Gasan. Guys, any more questions? Okay, we'll wait for another minute.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, any more questions? Feel free to ask.
Anytime, Tariq.
Okay, there is another question. Gasan, how about traditional P2V to cloud migration?
Yeah, actually, many companies nowadays have a legacy server or bare metal server where they have installed their legacy applications. So for this specific case, there's tools we use to replicate this environment from on-premise and migrate it to the cloud.
I would like to add a bit more to Hassan's answer to Bernard's question on how about traditional transition from physical to virtual to cloud migration. You can even skip the P2V part and just go straight from physical to cloud. It's quite possible with something like Cloudr. Again, like Hassan said, it's entirely dependent on the workload. There are different options that we have, and it's quite possible to move any one of them.
Guys, any more questions? All right. I think that brings us to an end of the session.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Ghassan, for the presentation.
Thank you, June. Thank you, everyone.
It's my absolute pleasure. I thank everyone.
Yes, guys. Yes, can we share the slides?
Sure. Yes, Junaid, I'll be sending the slides over to you a little bit later on today. But yes, definitely.
For sure. Yes, yes, Bernard. We'll share the slides. All right. Thank you so much, Ghassan. Thank you, Stephen.
It is my pleasure. All right. Have a wonderful evening,
With
everyone.
pleasure.
You too.
Thank you,
You too.
everyone. Bye bye.